Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, Goldberg has joined The Undertaker in shooting on soft modern wrestling.
Mick Foley defends modern wrestling.
A top NXT star may have been given a secret main roster call-up.
And I'll tell you how Chris Benoit almost replaced Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19. I'm Adam Wilborn.
And I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
All right, start with Bill Goldberg. Why the hell not? He was the guest of Corey Graves on After the Bell, the podcast earlier this week. One of the topics of conversation that came up, maybe inevitably, was The Undertaker's comments on modern wrestling being a bit soft and, missing the days when men were men and we had guns and knives in the locker room. That was a weird little line, but it came out. Goldberg was asked about this and he essentially agreed with The Undertaker. I've got a direct quotation from him here. Times are different than they were back then, but people are soft and people take offense too quickly. Get a little thicker skin, boys and girls, that's all I can say. When legends came back when I was in the business, in the beginning, I was greatly appreciative of the eyes they brought to our product. And one day, those young kids are going to be just like me, and I hope karma comes back to bite them in the ass. That's all I can say, because at 54 years old, I don't know one of them that could be doing what I do, botching jackhammers in Saudi Arabia. He did, however, single out Drew McIntyre for a bit of praise. Gave him credit for forcing his way up the card, becoming a locker room leader and earning his shot at the very top. So Goldberg there backing up The Undertaker, kind of expressing his own belief that things are soft in 2021. Mick Foley, however, he doesn't agree.
What a knobhead. Not Mick Foley, Goldberg, I mean. Yeah, the thing is, it's all well and good saying that, but when legends return in WWE now, they go over the modern talent. That's probably why the current superstars aren't exactly happy to see them, because they just think, oh, cool, someone's here to take my spot. It's ridiculous that he looks at the modern products and certainly the modern superstars and thinks that they're soft. We've mentioned this before when we talked about the Undertaker thing. Yes, it's maybe not the same as it was, for good and bad, but it's the writing. That's the problem. That's the major issue, the booking and the writing. It's not the superstar's fault. And as Andy alluded to there, Mick Foley has come out in defence of the modern product because, well, he's just a lovely bloke, isn't he? And he tweeted, presumably off the back of this Goldberg interview, today's professional wrestlers are every bit as tough as the wrestlers of my era were. Just my opinion. I think he's absolutely spot on, Andy. And I think the fact that he's like, oh yeah, modern day wrestlers are soft. And Roman Reigns fights back from leukemia and is probably now going to be in the WrestleMania main event. Wouldn't describe him as soft, Andy.
Yeah, no, me neither. The thing about this whole debate is look, I know what I would prefer to cover and support, right? I think I would probably prefer, the era of wrestling where we don't have rampant talk of backstage bullying and hazing and wrestlers' court and, unprotected headshots every single week. And look, if that makes me soft, call me Charmin, baby. I'm all in. Look, you obviously respect the legends of the past and so forth. You appreciate what they've brought to the business. You acknowledge that, maybe the sport wouldn't be as big as it is today without people like The Undertaker, without people like Goldberg. But you can have a respectful disagreement in all of this at the same time. Hey, man, maybe it is, a little lighter backstage. But is that necessarily is it a bad thing that, like The Undertaker referred to, people aren't backstage with knives and guns? Are video games such a great evil in this case? This whole thing is kind of nuts, and it inspires passionate opinions on both sides of the argument. I do agree with Mick Foley, man. Anyone who does this for a living is tough. Wrestling is brutal. It enacts a heavy physical toll on everyone who does it, constantly bumping, not at the moment, but hitting the road, not having ample recovery time. Obviously, these things existed back in the days of the stars of yesteryear, but it's a hard job. Everyone who does it is tough. I don't care if they were born 20 years ago or 60 years ago. Respect, admiration for everyone who puts the body through that. But knives and guns, no.
I think the thing is, don't get me wrong, I love the good old days, and I think there is a tendency to always think, oh, it was better in my day. But I'll admit, I sit there, I got lost the other day just on a stream of YouTube videos with like Kevin Nash telling road stories and thinking, oh God, that must have been classic. I think there was also, though, a tendency to look back with sort of rose-tinted glasses and think, oh yeah, everything was great back then. And as Andy alluded to, it really wasn't. But I don't think we need to just poop all over the current product in terms of the wrestlers quite so much.
Yeah. I mean, something that sums it up for me personally, and I'll move on to the next story very quickly. My favorite wrestling era of all time is mid-1980s Jim Crockett Promotions, right? You can appreciate the merits of that era and the modern era at the same time. We don't always have to be so goddamn tribal. And I kind of wish wrestlers would stop making it so goddamn tribal. That would be nice. Okay, let's move on. Has a top NXT star secretly been given a main roster call-up? Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio certainly seems to think so. Rhea Ripley is the person we're talking about. This comes following several reports on Ripley's status in the company. She had the great match with Raquel Gonzalez. I loved that last woman standing bout at New Year's Eve. PW Insider reported that as a write-out. Dave then followed up with a report of his own saying that, she's moving up, it's happening. But we've got this new report here stating that Rhea is already on the main roster. She's already considered part of that crew. She was originally going to debut on Raw or SmackDown a few weeks ago, but that was put off for a couple of weeks. But a couple of weeks is now. And Dave states, he's not reporting this, he's not saying this is going to happen, but he says, rightly, that the Royal Rumble would be a great place to introduce her, and winning it would be a great way to launch her towards the stratosphere once more. So, good stuff, right? Rhea Ripley's more than ready for this spot, and I would not be disappointed at all if she won the Rumble.
No, absolutely spot on. I think she was, last time I checked, third favourite behind Bianca Belair and I think Alexa Bliss now, whose odds have significantly shortened over the past few weeks. But it seems such a straightforward piece of booking and the right thing to do. Like you say, I think she's done everything she's going to do in NXT. Decent little write-out, and the rub obviously given to potential future NXT Women's Champion Raquel Gonzalez, who looks a mint at the moment. And it's like I said, it's so straightforward. You have Charlotte Flair in the Rumble match, dominating. Rhea Ripley's music hits. The commentators hype up their history with last year's WrestleMania, of course. Maybe even Rhea Ripley is the one to eliminate Charlotte Flair. I still think the best piece of booking, the most likely piece of booking, is Bianca Belair winning the Royal Rumble, which is absolutely fine by me. Maybe down to her and, let's say, Bayley for the final two. They're 1 and 2. We're going to find that out on Backstage. We're not going to find that out. That's what I'm speculating. They should be 1 and 2. They should go all the way through. Bianca Belair eliminates Bayley, wins the whole thing, but Rhea Ripley's eliminated Charlotte. Charlotte wins the title off Asuka, because they're inevitably not going to have Asuka, I don't think, go to WrestleMania as Raw Women's Champion. Charlotte takes the title of Asuka after they drop the tag titles at the Royal Rumble. She turns on Asuka, maybe takes it off her in the Elimination Chamber, and Rhea Ripley is the number 1 contender, and we run it back, and Rhea Ripley should win this time. Really easy, Andy. Yeah,
really easy. And if she does lose, and she shouldn't, don't have her like sulking on the locker room in the follow-up segment. Make it work, make it cool, make her look like a badass, because that's her character, right? I'd love to see her win. If she doesn't win, for me, it's a head-to-head between her and Bianca Belair. Yeah. I'd be happy with either of those. Give me one of those, that'd be cool.
I think WWE will have to try hard to screw up both Royal Rumbles this year, but they've done it in the past, so who knows. Let's conclude by talking about Kurt Angle's new podcast. He's got one called The Kurt Angle Show, alongside friend of the channel, of course, and podcast podfather, Conrad Thompson. And the first episode, to accompany this announcement, came out talking about WrestleMania 19 with Brock Lesnar. By the way, if you're a fan of podcasts, check ours out wherever you get your podcasts from. What Culture Wrestling. And he talked about the possibility of Chris Benoit replacing him at WrestleMania 19. Of course, we all know that Kurt Angle needed neck surgery going into that WrestleMania. He discovered that, he says, after coming off the back of a trip to South Africa. And McMahon had effectively booked him to drop the title to Brock Lesnar on an episode of SmackDown. I assume that was the one. Actually, I will get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself here. However, Angle explains that with that happening, and then Benoit was going to replace him and face Lesnar at WrestleMania, plans change. Basically, Benoit talked about going back home and seeing his neighbour's kid, Johnny, who has Down syndrome, saying to him that he would be so sad he's not going to be wrestling Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. That sort of made the cogs start turning in Kurt Angle's mind, and he thought about it, spoke to Vince and said, you know what, yes, my arm is atrophying, but another couple of weeks, quote, isn't going to hurt. God, he's a hard bastard. I'll have the match. So he wanted to just do it, have that match, and then as he did, go off and have the neck surgery. McMahon wasn't a fan. They'd already booked the title match with SmackDown. But then this is where the match was taking place. I thought this was such a brilliant swerve back in the day, where Lesnar faced a bald guy in a singlet, but it turned out to be Eric Angle. They did the whole switcheroo. Kurt Angle retained. I really loved that whole build to WrestleMania. That promo is one I go back and watch on a regular basis. I thought it was very, very clever of, the Team Angle, Eric Angle, Paul Heyman, all trying to get in the way of the Royal Rumble winner Brock Lesnar, who of course eventually nearly broke his own neck, but won the title from Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19. Maybe it would have been different. I've no doubt that Brock Lesnar versus Chris Benoit would have been a great match at WrestleMania, but I think things worked out for the best in the end, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. Classic build, classic match, classic payoff. No more to add. It was great.
Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCultureWWE. Of course, if you want to get in touch with us. Colin Pereira starts us off, who says, what stars in NXT can you see breaking out in 2021? I personally really like Bronson Reed, think he's on a roll recently and can maybe see him challenging Johnny Gargano for the North American Championship sometime soon.
Yeah, I think that's a good smart pick, for sure. I like Jake Atlas a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential, a lot of charisma.
One of the best finishers in the business today, I'd say. Incredible
finisher, great wrestler all around. Still very young, so he has some developing to go. But I think he's a potential candidate for next year. I guess she's kind of on people's radars already. But Casey Catanzaro is a lot of fun, and if she can find the spaces to fill the gaps between all the incredible, crazy stuff she can do, she's a candidate for it as well.
Yeah, I think Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter may well go on to win that women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic and hopefully become women's tag team champions, possibly taking them off Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Who knows? But yeah, good picks. Aside from them, I'm always going to say it doesn't really count because they've had a big year last year and they're going to have a big year already this year. But the grizzled young veterans are my pick for future NXT Tag Team Champions. And of course, this is the year of Cameron Grimes, baby, straight to the moon. He may well be involved in the Rumble match on Sunday, as I think probably Bronson Reed will. But yeah, at the bare minimum, he has to win the North American Championship this year. Next question today comes from Shane Daniels, who says, good morning, gents. Or as it is here on the US West Coast, good evening, gents. Are we going to hear Burn It Down on Sunday? And if/when we do, is Rollins winning the whole thing to set up a WrestleMania 37 feud with Roman Reigns?
Yeah, I do think Rollins will come back. The timing just feels right. When it was saying he was taking the time off for the birth of his child, it was like a couple of months, right? It was like a month or two. We haven't seen him yet. The Royal Rumble's coming up. Perfect sense. I think it's happening. I would bet £2 on it happening. And I don't think he'll win. No. I don't think you can just swerve away from the Messiah character into a feud with Roman Reigns, who is another heel straight away. But I do think he'll be back, and I do think he'll make an impact.
Yeah, I miss him now. It's been sufficient time. I'd like to see him back. I don't think, like you do, I don't think he's winning and facing Roman Reigns. I think they're probably saving that for a little bit down the line. Maybe something like SummerSlam, perhaps. But all I do know, and this is not my word, this is the word of the Dadley boys, is that when you're at home and you've just had a baby and you're a dad, really want to get back to work and get out of the house. Not my words, the words of the Dadley boys. Final question today comes from David Rivera, who says, greetings from Puerto Rico, who says, we know that WWE is announcing the 30th entrant in the Men's Royal Rumble. That is, of course, going to be on Backstage this weekend. However, Andy Murray, could this be a swerve so whoever's announced gets attacked or can't participate and the real number 30 shows up instead? Of course, we've seen this in recent years.
Yeah, Nia Jax and not R-Truth, of course. Becky Lynch and Lana. There are ways you could do that. I think you've got to be careful with it, though, because the way that would resonate well is if the number 30 person that they announced was somebody that people didn't really want in that spot, and then they get replaced by someone they do want. But the risk you run with that is that you might poison the well on Saturday by going, hey, number 30 is going to be Jackson Riker. And then, say he gets beaten up and replaced by Seth Rollins. That would probably resonate quite well. But if it's the other way around and you say Seth's coming back, he's going to be number 30 and he gets replaced by Jackson Riker on the night, that's going to go down like a fart in a crowded elevator. So you got to be careful with it, but if you plan it right, I do think that can work.
And I said this when they announced it, that they were going to be revealing it. I was a bit annoyed, but then I was like, well, there's still 29 others that I know people are going to be in it, but I don't know who 27, 28, 29 are going to be. So if Brock Lesnar, for example, is going to return, it could just come back at 29. Like you say, and I think it all depends on who they announce. If they announce,
for sure,
I don't know, The Fiend as number 30, you can probably expect that to be the case. If they announce Arturo Huas, no offense to him, I'd expect him to be found KO'd in a hallway probably on Sunday night. But whatever you're doing for the Royal Rumble, join us for our live stream, me and Phil Chambers, on Sunday night right here on What Culture Wrestling's YouTube channel. Let's move on to today's and finally, and just a lovely moment, and also sort of harkening back to the whole tribalism thing you were saying, Andy. Sheamus is WWE, Miro is AEW, but they're still friends. We can all still get along, and they can still buy each other horrific presents like this that Miro bought for Sheamus, a life-size, to use Sheamus's words, hashtag Flasher Gremlin. That's when you know who your true friends are, Andy. And when we get back in the office, we've decided, you and I, we are reinstigating the whole, what's the worst thing we can buy each other from WWE shop for our birthdays? I think Adam Cleary's got a horrific Natalia Cat t-shirt. I think, actually, Adam Nicholas may well have some really bad Hounds of Justice Shield t-shirt that I haven't seen him wearing recently, and he's such a fashionista.
I know, man. What's he doing? Michael Hamflett has a rather good Kane t-shirt, doesn't he? Me and you both have Crete t-shirts, yes. So there's lots of options. We love indulging in the many bad pieces of merchandise available from pro wrestling websites.
What I like about this picture as well is Miro's clearly brought this to some cafe to give to him, so they've both got to sit there with this giant gremlin on the table. How's work? Yeah, not bad. Kind of prefer you hadn't brought this Flasher Gremlin to the calf, to be honest. Get quite a lot of looks.
He does not care, does he?
No. That's when you know who your true friends are. Let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from. As well as Kurt Angle's new podcast. Sounds great. By searching for What Culture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from, as I said. Let us know your thoughts, Twitter questions on Twitter at What Culture WWE. And watch there. Follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for hey, enjoy your weekend. Hey, me and Andy are going to go for a socially distanced walk around the park. You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. It's literally the highlight of my entire weekend. Follow us all at What Culture WWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Enjoy the Rumble! Yeah.